Hello again, Roy.RealEstate here with Coldwell Banker Legacy in San Angelo. Today I want to talk to you about something that's not real estate related, but it's pretty popular in the news right now. And it's an airplane related issue. The 737-8 MAX. You probably have all heard about the two accidents they've had with them in the past couple of months, and as of today the FAA has temporarily grounded them. And so I just wanted to give you a pilot's perspective on it. Now I'm not a 737 pilot, but I am a pilot with jet type ratings and stuff, so I understand a little bit about the systems. So just kind of background. First off, the 737 was first made in 1967, the year I was born. They've sold over 10,000 of them. So the basic 737 is an amazingly tried and true tested airplane. If you've been on 5 airline flights, you've almost certainly been on a 737 at some point. So what's happened over those intervening 50-something years is Boeing has continually made the airplane a little bit more capable. They've done this with avionics, with stretching the fuselage, adding larger engines, larger fuel tanks, and the airplane has consistently grown. Anytime someone flies jet airplanes, they have to have what's called a type rating, at least in the US. And that type rating is for that specific type of airplane. You are rated to fly that type of airplane. And Boeing has worked with the FAA to keep the 737 on the same type rating all the way from the 737-100s up to the 8 MAX. And it's kind of a trade-off here, because a lot of the basic systems are the same, but with every iteration of it, and there's more or less 10 at this point, there are little changes, and sometimes substantial changes. And so airlines, even some airlines combine them all in one group, some have them separated into multiple groups depending on how they do them. But what's happened over the years and historically is that the pilots are the weak link in the system. So engineers and designers have always looked for ways to keep the pilots from doing something stupid and hurting the airplane. So Airbus has gone to a more extreme version of this, particularly when they first started doing it 20-something years ago, and their airplanes are what they call a fly-by-wire. Now back in the old days, even a lot of airplanes still today, when the pilot moved the control yoke or the stick or whatever in the cockpit, it physically moved controls. There was cables and bush pulleys and cranks and all this stuff going out there that when the pilot moved the wheel to the right, that it made the aileron on the right wing go up and the aileron on the left wing go down, so that it went into a right bank. And different people, different airline manufacturers, airplane manufacturers in general, have made different attempts on how to solve the pilot error problem and make the airplanes easier to fly. And so Airbus went to completely fly-by-wire years ago. There in an Airbus, the pilot moves the stick tells the computer what the pilot wants to do, the computer decides if that's a good idea, and then the computer sends a signal to the controls and actually moves the physical controls to put the airplane in that configuration. Now it happens much quicker than that, obviously, but so Boeing has always stayed with the more traditional manual controls. But what they did with the 737-8 MAX was they added a little computerized controller that can kind of fight against the pilot. Really an autopilot fights against the pilot. If the autopilot is engaged and the pilot tries to fly the airplane, the autopilot fights him because it's trying to do it its way. It's almost like there's two pilots fighting each other. So the software system that Boeing designed for the MAX 8, which was the first time they'd ever put it on 737, what it tries to do is, if it senses instability in pitch, that the nose is going up and down more rapidly than it expects, it tries to dampen that out. And basically tries to correct to keep the pilot from putting the airplane into an unintended dive or something like that. And when it works really well. So what possibly has been happening in these accidents, and nobody really knows yet, maybe Boeing has a hint because of what the data they've got from the first accident, the Lion Air crash, has been recovered, and they've had some time to analyze that data. But it seems like possibly there's either a bug in the system or one of the sensors gets bad data, and it's a computer. So when it gets bad data, garbage in, garbage out, it makes bad decisions. And so it can possibly put it into a situation that's unrecoverable by the pilots, that the pilots are sort of in control, but the airplane is, via this added part of the controls, is actually fighting them. So that can be a very bad thing, obviously. So, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done to figure out if this is truly a problem. There's been 2 accidents, and I don't know exactly how many 737 MAX 8s are out there, but I'd guess it's probably crowding 100 by now. Multiple airlines are flying them. There's lots of hours and lots of experience in this, and so possibly this is a problem that's just starting to show up that is a real problem. It possibly can be fixed with software. Boeing has worked on some software upgrades that will fix it. Honestly, there's so much unknown. So the question is, and I back up a little bit to what I talked about with FAA and type rating. So the FAA is stuck with the same type rating from a 737-100 to fly the 737 MAX 8, even though there's been substantial changes in the systems over those 50 years. But is that good or bad? I mean, it makes it better for the airlines. They spend less training. They have less because each pilot is in a different pool based on the type of airplane they fly. So it makes it a lot simpler, and a lot of the basic designs are the same. But a lot of people think that the 737 is it's morphed so much over those generations that it needs to be a separate type rating, and that's an argument that needs to be had. You know, it's not a black and white decision. It's not a safe unsafe decision, but it's maybe we've gone too far. But you know, most of the 737s in use are going to be the last 4 or 5 different models as well. So that's one of the things. So the question is, would I, with my knowledge base, go get on a 737 MAX 8? And the short answer to that is yes. A little bit longer version is, if it was flown by an American airline, American-based airline, not American Airlines, but any of the United States airlines, then yes, I would. The training level of the crews, the capabilities of the pilots is yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And honestly, if I was I would probably realistically, statistically, go get on an Ethiopian airline or Lions Air, even the 2 airlines that had these accidents. But there are differences in the training and the maintenance and the pilot experience and capabilities in these airlines that may keep them from being able to fight the computer and win, so to speak, in a really bad situation. And so there's more and more things you're just starting to see if the computer's doing something wrong, is the pilot good enough, both in experience and capabilities, to figure out what's going wrong and find a way to save the airplane from the computer. And it's a real problem, but the answer is it remains to be seen. So possibly training and or updates to the software system or something can make this event completely go away. But again, I would not hesitate on any United States airline to get on them and fly them today, and wouldn't hesitate very long even if it was an airline in Africa or Indonesia or any of the third world countries. But the risk is higher there, but the risk is higher no matter what airplane you're on in those cases. So the fact is that statistically there is no form of travel in this world that even is close to as safe as airlines. Even the third world airlines, particularly the third world airlines using modern, I mean, remember, these are fairly new airplanes. Those third world airlines, even that are using these modern jet aircraft, that your chances of a true accident are so infinitesimally small. Now, it scares people because you're out of control, and I understand that. But statistically, it's just not a problem. Now, there are lower levels of aircraft that have been out of service in the United States that are still in use in some of those third world countries, and that would give me a little more time for pause, before I would get on them, just because of the maintenance of an older airplane that has already been phased out of service in the United States. But all in all, I mean, the 737 MAX 8 is amazingly safe, probably today. We don't know 100% sure. And when it's all said and done, this is probably a problem that will be fixed. I wouldn't hesitate to get on one today. Would hesitate 0 seconds if it was on a United States airline, and maybe only a second or two if it was a foreign airline. So it's not a big deal to be concerned about, even though it's front page, top of the fold news in the last week or so. So you needed one more person telling you a little bit more about the 737 MAX 8, so I decided to jump in and do that. Roy.RealEstate, 325-268-0775. Thank you.